And the real question is, what good does it do to get the list of honest citizens that own guns?
It would be great if the bad guys always left the guns that they used in the crime at the scene. So then they could take that fancy list and they could just cross-check it and we could catch all of them.
You look at history. Registration leads to confiscation.
Today we're going to be doing a very, very fine handgun, the Smith & Wesson Model 52.
Our panelists include Emily Miller, Marketing Director from the gun store in Las Vegas, Michael Giles, retired police officer and defense attorney from Creed & Giles, Tony D., retired police officer and firearms instructor from the gun store, Lieutenant Randy Sutton, retired policeman and author, and your host, Bob Irwin from the gun store.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin, your host for the show, coming to you from the gun store in Las Vegas, Nevada. This program is all about guns, politics, and self-defense. On this edition, the panel will discuss, there seems to be a hard federal push on to register all firearms owners. That's been going on for some time. The question is, what does the government gain by that? Does it lower crime rates or actually reduce crime to have a list of everybody who owns a gun? Secondly, we're going to cover a story, interesting thing happened in Oregon. We had a county get their sheriff's department basically defunded by the federal government. They had no money, couldn't raise taxes, so they've created their own, I guess they call it an armed patrol group that now responds to calls, usually nonviolent, but they do carry guns in case. The last thing we're going to discuss tonight, a very interesting story about the new Detroit police chief who actually said that having more armed citizens results in less crime. Wow, don't we all already know that? But a police chief has now said that. The first story is about governments keeping a list of citizens that own firearms. Many states and some local governments require citizens to, if they own handguns, to register them with the city or county or state. A few require them to record who owns rifles and shotguns. And the real question is, why? What good does it do to get the list of honest citizens that own guns?
Well, it would be great if the bad guys always left the guns that they used in the crime at the scene. So then they could take that fancy list and they could just cross-check it and we could catch all of them. But clearly they're not doing that. So I don't understand why they make the list, because the guys committing the crimes probably aren't going down to the gun store and registering and saying, here's my information. I'm going to go kill these people. Here's my gun.
Well, I think it's more for politicians and the cops. I know here in Clark County that we've had handgun registrations, I think in 1948, and I think they did it specifically to get the mob guys to register their guns when they came to Las Vegas. Like, that's really going to happen.
But they all lost them.
But,
Can't find
but we still have it, and it's the law. I don't know how it's going to reduce crime, but we don't register long guns or shotguns or rifles. The long guns, just the handguns. So, and we're the only county in the state of Nevada that has it. So, and I don't know, Randy, maybe anybody has their handgun registration, the Clark County registration, solved any crimes?
Oh yeah, the registration has a purpose. There were a number of cases I was involved in where we recovered handguns that were stolen that the owners didn't know they were stolen, and so we were able to trace them back to the owners and then get an additional felony charge on the guy that had the gun, because possession of a stolen firearm, regardless of the value, is a felony crime. So registration has a purpose, if you will. But it's frightening to me that the federal government is getting involved in this, because any student of history knows that when a federal government creates a list of weapons, the only purpose for it is somewhere down the road they want to take those weapons. And having that list of people, in my view, is truly egregious.
But it's worse than that, because it's not just the federal government. States do it. We're seeing that in New York and in California right now, where they're New York's actually going out and sending out letters. We're collecting these items up. California's threatened to do it. They may have done it in some respects with the assault weapons that they said were not registered properly after they changed their last set of laws. But I question whether or not the economic value of running the list and the registration, especially like here where it's just Clark County, not the rest of the state, the crimes that get solved by the registration list do not outweigh the economic cost of managing and maintaining the list, and the fact that there's still a misdemeanor on the statute. If you don't have the blue card, or if you have a firearm that you didn't realize it was supposed to be registered and it is, you could be charged with that for simply failing to tell the local law enforcement agency that you have it. And it doesn't affect transfers. You can take that registered firearm out of the county and sell it privately in Nevada. A lot of states have that. California has a goofy situation where they don't restrict private sale of long guns. They don't track private sale of long guns to somebody you don't know, but they do track it within a family. So if I wanted to transfer a firearm, a long gun, to one of my children or a brother or a sister, we'd have to go through the whole waiting period and the background check for that person. So it's kind of a crazy situation where the registration and the tracking doesn't seem to apply directly to a direct law enforcement purpose. I expect law enforcement purpose to be preventing crime. It's nice if it helps solve some stolen guns back to the right people. We didn't even know that was stolen kind of thing. But it doesn't prevent a single person. Just having a little blue card next to the handgun doesn't prevent that person from committing a crime. Registering it and knowing where it is doesn't prevent the crime.
I want to look at what you just said. The new California law just went in January 1, says that if you're talking about yourself, if you sell a gun to a family member, they have to get a background check.
Right.
But you can sell a gun to a total stranger, and that doesn't get a background check.
Are
you sure that's not just California reacting to your family? Well,
that could be. I move.
I mean,
A lot of firearms to family members, right?
Makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
and if anybody in California can call us up and say, no, this is how this has reduced crime.
How can anybody out here say that honest citizens owning guns is going to reduce crime? A list of honest citizens. All right, with Randy, with the returning of stolen property, fine. We get traces here every day on guns. Now, I'm not saying it's probably easier for Clark County to just go with their handgun, but they're still going to be able to trace it back, and we do it all the time. I mean, it may be step saving and it may save a little time, but we all know, and I know, and from you look at history, registration leads to confiscation, and it's been that way forever, and it's and that's what it's going to come down to. Once they get the list, it's just cherry picking,
I'm not disagreeing at all, and as a police officer, the power of having this law can lead to abuse. I mean, the reality is that the more power the government has, the more power the government wants, and by encroaching on the rights of the honest person, what we do is we're creating an environment that can lead to abuse, and I think we really need to be careful of that. But the politicians in Washington and in the various states are just they're trying to get votes, and so they jump on this political bandwagon where they can pontificate about safety, and it's untrue and it's unfair.
It has really nothing to do with safety, and what Tony was talking about, what we do constantly with the national registration, if you will, doesn't register the gun, doesn't register the people. It registers when a gun crime there's a gun involved in a crime. The ATF can trace it back through the manufacturer to the dealer and find who bought it. So they trace the gun. With gun registration, we're tracing the people rather than the guns.
Well, and
that's
the reality
what's wrong
is
with it.
that so often, if I buy a gun from the gun store, and then I sell the gun later on, it still comes back registered to me unless the person that I sold it to has registered it.
Well, what if I sell a gun out of Clark County? That's the other problem with it. I've actually had that happen to me where I had sold a firearm up in Elko. I was up there deer hunting, and somebody said, "Hey, I really like that." And I said, "Yeah, I'll sell it to you. I don't have 2 of them or whatever it was." I sold the handgun, and it wound up somewhere else, and I got a call from an agent going, "Hey, do you own this firearm?" And I said, "I haven't owned it for years." He says, "Prove it." So it was a private sale. He says, "Well, you're registered to it. We've the blue card to this handgun." I said, "Yeah, but Metro never takes you out of the blue system. I can't go down and say I sold the gun, take me out." "Well, where'd you sell the gun?" "Elko." "We don't have to worry about that. They don't register." Okay. So it's not an effective tracking tool, 3 or 4 people removed.
And it makes criminals. If 2 guys now go hunting in California and they say, "Wow, I'd like to have that rifle," and you say, "Well, I'd like to have yours," and they just trade guns, they both committed a crime without involving the state.
Right.
And the same thing in New York State now. We're creating criminals. So it will stop that crime, I guess, because we'll create criminals and waste of time. We've run out of time in this segment. We're going to be back after a little capitalism to talk about the next issue. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
He took a bunch of retired cops and concerned citizens and basically created his own citizens posse. So this just opens up an amazing array of issues.
And we are back here on Fired Up. When budgets cuts hit a sheriff's department in Josephine County, Oregon, actually is where this took place, the sheriff, not having any budget to do anything, they reduced their forces by canceling a lot of their special units and so on, and cutting services to the town, the main town in the county, and to the county, to 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And if you have a crime that you need response to after hours, they would send an officer from home if the call is deemed to be life-threatening. There's just an enormous number of problems with this.
But this is crazy because they lost a revenue source, and so the local government said, well, let's put a tax initiative out there, and the voters voted it down. They said, no, we're not going to pay an extra X amount of dollars on our already high taxes for this. So law enforcement said, well, then we're going to go to banker's hours. We're going to close the jail. We're going to release a bunch of people we're holding, and basically, unless you have a problem between these hours and these hours, and it's the kind of problem we think we can handle on our budget, you're on your own.
Cool.
This is great, though, because now you know when exactly you should commit the crimes because the response time is going to be severely delayed.
And the former sheriff decided that since basically it's you're on your own, what he did was he took a bunch of retired cops and concerned citizens and basically created his own citizens posse that will respond to nonviolent calls, although they're armed. So this just opens up an amazing array of issues. Who's responsible for conducting investigative work? Who is going to take responsibility if there's a shooting incident? This is literally a breakdown of the basic services that citizens expect of the government. So if you throw basically an armed militia at this, I think it's just going to open up a huge
Well, we're
can
reverting
of
back
issues.
into frontier days. It's you're basically, and a lot of people, especially gun people, they know when the manure hits the ventilator, you're basically on your own anyway. But it really took a step up in this particular area. Now, I'm sure Josephine County is not the most populous, crime-ridden part of Oregon. But I mean, we're still talking evidence technicians. If they do have a major incident, I can see a liability lawyer dream come true with some of this.
That's so scary. As a citizen who has no law enforcement background, being told that no one's going to be there to respond unless there's a gun to my head, that's terrifying
Now,
as a citizen.
they say that they will only respond to life-threatening incidents. Now, here's the thing that
What does that mean?
that's open for debate, but
Imminent
here's the
danger,
important thing
health
to
response.
understand. The Supreme Court has ruled on more than one occasion that law enforcement does not have a duty to protect individuals. They have a duty to a society as a whole, but what that duty is has never been really well defined. And everybody who's ever tried to sue a law enforcement agency because they didn't respond quick enough or didn't respond at all in one case, and an individual wound up dead, the Supreme Court said, well, they're not there to save
in
you.
Las Vegas during the riots. I think a lawsuit was brought against Metro because somebody called and they didn't come, and they said, well, we don't have to come.
But it's possible, but that one didn't make it to the Supreme Court,
No,
so.
but I think there was.
Now-
I recall reading that.
Now, where this could get questionable is if one of these armed groups does something borderline criminal or over the line, which again is rural, probably not going to happen. But then the question would become, who organized them and under whose authority were they operating? If they're operating under the apparent authority of the government, those people now fall subject to the federal law, the same as police officers.
But expanding on that, I'm just a concerned citizen, and I respond to a call for help, and I'm the concerned citizen, and I wind up in a use of force incident where I kick somebody's butt, or I wind up in a shooting. The liability's all on me.
Or if you get injured, who orders your workman's comp?
Right. Well, and when they turn around and say, but we were doing it on behalf of the citizens, or we're doing it on behalf of the government, or we're doing it on behalf of the sheriff, it's going to be like Willy Wonka going, no, don't, stop. Because they've told them, you're on your own if you do this.
Yeah, the county did tell him not to do it. He's got 100 guys in his posse, and they break it up into shifts, and they go to, there's a burglar coming in my house, I think. They respond to that. They try to have an actual trained officer that's retired go with each group. But I just before I run out of time, I got to read this. A lady called in when this was going on and said that she had a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend, and she's really worried he's going to come break into her house again. And in a memo, the sheriff warned that they would respond only to calls they considered life-threatening, and even those warned who feared for their personal safety, such as having an active restraining order, that perhaps they should consider relocating to an area with adequate law enforcement services.
That's just, let me wave the white flag, and I'm surrendering right now. I'm surrendering all authority, and we're just giving up.
Now, they do have the state police coming in behind them, but they don't patrol, and they respond to calls, but they respond very slowly because they're coming from way out of the area. So these guys are it, basically, on
They
the
meet
first
once
call.
a month.
Yeah, they get together and agree on things and talk. But there are
Like a
large...
neighborhood watch
There are
It's
large...
a neighborhood watch
It's a neighborhood watch.
on steroids.
to discuss.
There are large tracts of this country, though, that are so rural that there really isn't a law enforcement presence, and the people there have done this sort of thing just interwoven, right? The ranchers all get together and they keep an eye out for each other, and if somebody drives into the area that they don't recognize, they call, hey, there's a weird car going down the road or whatever. This is only really getting any attention because it's a town. It had a law enforcement presence. It had a police department that collapsed under the fiscal responsibility of paying these individuals. So it's not so
But to
far
be
removed from what
told-
some places do, but to be told if you
No
don't
one's
like it
gonna
move,
come.
yeah.
But to be told, you know what? If you're sitting there and somehow you got a phone in one hand and a gun to your head and you dial, no one's coming.
Well,
That's terrifying.
And I think one of these situations, the person was on the phone and the 911 operator was saying things like, well, ask them to leave.
oh,
There's in the outline a whole bunch of incidents like that. And
it's not funny, but
I've got to go with this Ken Seelig guy doing something about it.
You're right. This is an act of desperation.
Yeah, but if he doesn't do this, and at least try to organize some kind of response. They do patrol around here and there, and they're untrained, but the whole town's safer than they would be when the word gets out, here you got a town of 900 people, whatever, and we don't have law enforcement from Saturday and Sunday and after 5, and obviously what's going to happen there.
It's bizarre.
Very.
But it's also, this is a tragedy waiting to happen. That's what this is. I guarantee that there's going to be a tragic situation. Someone's going to lose their life over this, and I wonder if the taxpayers. I wonder how much that tax increase was.
It wasn't really substantial, but again, this little part of the state is really reliant on timber subsidies, and that's what got pulled. The federal government pulled a $7.5 million timber subsidy, which is what they used to continue maintaining these services. And if everybody's associated with timber and there's no timber work, nobody has the money. So it really,
and that
it
means
has
crime goes up, desperation
absolutely
goes up,
a disproportionate effect,
and services go down.
Ta-da.
So if you want a little outdoor fun, go to Josephine County, Oregon. They're working on it. It's probably a little backwoodsy right now, but I'm sure it'll be a nice tourist spot one of these days.
If you have a big hat and a big gun, you could be mayor. For free, probably. Volunteer, I don't know.
Emily's
I'm gonna
gonna
go
run.
apply.
She's moving.
Bob,
She's
I'm
running.
quitting. I'm going to Josephina.
I sympathize with him, and I think this guy is taking tremendous risk doing what he's doing, and he's going to get in trouble for it very likely, but he's trying to do something. Anyway, that's where it is. Don't go away.
We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
Today we're going to be doing a very, very fine handgun, the Smith & Wesson Model 52.
We are back. With me is Mitch, who runs the Rocky Mountain Gun Shows. We're his guests here filming some of the displays. This is an amazing show. It's
Thank you. Thank
in the middle
you.
of this wonderful hotel. It's gorgeous, and it's it's just terrific. How long have you been doing these in Las Vegas? Long time.
You know, this is actually our 4-year anniversary. This month is our 4-year anniversary for the Rocky Mountain Gun Show, and we've been doing them here at South Point the whole time. The South Point Casino's been wonderful to us. It's a great facility, so we're real happy to be here. We get a great turnout.
Yeah, I can see that. And this is the second day, and the place is packed.
Yeah, yes.
The vendors seem to be
We've
happy.
got awesome vendor support, a lot of big vendors that follow us around. We do our best to keep them happy, and we kind of pride ourselves on the advertising we do for our show. We do a ton of advertising, from billboards to radio, TV.
Well, you're about to have some more, apparently.
Yeah, and we really try to do a lot of advertising to bring the people in for our vendors.
Well, it's just part of the gun industry. It's so nice to have this here because it creates a lot of interest in firearms, and the more
Sure.
publicity we all have, the better
Sure.
off we do.
We also offer a CCW class here, and that's a nice for the public, to come in, and I think everybody should have their concealed weapons permit.
I couldn't agree more. You even have the ATF here.
Yep,
answering
the ATF
questions
is,
for people.
you know what, they've been very supportive of us. They compliment us on a show well run. They compliment us on being strict with our rules. We try to follow the letter of the law as best we can, and make everybody happy, do what we're supposed to do. And
Well, I appreciate
everybody
your,
can have
your
the
putting the show on, and I appreciate you letting us in to film it as part of our show.
absolutely, we love. Thanks for coming.
It's it's good for everybody. Anyway,
Yeah.
I appreciate it very much.
All
Thank
righty.
you very much.
Thank
Mitch.
you.
Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
We are back here at Rocky Mountain Gun Show, and I run across this interesting gentleman that runs Caravan West Productions.
And don't you forget that.
Has a movie ranch
Yes.
where they film cowboy movies
Top
and,
cowboy movies and the TV series Top Shot.
and
that
Top Shot. films.
Everybody watches that. Yes,
Wow.
we're in LA County and we have a small ranch of 2,400 acres. and being in LA is
2,400 acres in LA County.
One of the guys from Top Shot last year was from Texas, and he said to me, he says, "How big is the ranch here?" And I said, 2,400 acres. And he goes, "No, I got a ranch in Texas. I get in my pickup truck in the morning. Takes me all day to drive around there." And I said, "Really? I had a truck like that once."
They film Top Shot. You do. You guys have produced some movies and worked on movies there?
We've produced movies. Joe, he was over here before. We produced a movie a couple of years ago. I have the only company that has devoted all of its time to making westerns. So we do costumes, props, guns, horses, cows, location. We do I'm the only one that does that. There are other companies that do pieces of it,
Right.
but we do all of it. And then I'm an actor and stunt coordinator, so I'll do all of those things. I'm the Walmart of westerns.
Wow.
I will give them a lost leader.
The Walmart of Westerns.
Well,
that's amazing.
one of the things is there are $200 million movies and there are $1 million movies. And the $1 million movies can't afford all of the different companies. So I put this company together so I can give them 5 jobs and I'll charge them for 2 and I'll give them 3 for free. They can afford it.
Right.
Just to, I was interviewed for the radio a couple of weeks ago and they asked me, well, how do you do this? And I said, okay, this is the way in widgets. Say they have $2,000 for a budget. This is just a number.
Right.
Now, they have 5 jobs to complete. So they go, we need 5 guys that are knowledgeable and experts. On a scale from 1 to 10, an expert's a 9. So say they get $900. Well, you need 5 experts, $4,500. They're $2,500 over budget.
Right.
They can't afford it. So then they go to the regular people. Now the regular people are maybe a number 5, but they need 5 guys. That's $2,500. They're still over budget. They come to me, I'm at 8. And I say, I'll give you pay me for 2 jobs, I'll give you 3 extras for free. I'm making $1,600, more than the extras.
Right.
They're getting 5 jobs, and they're saving $400 in their budget.
And a movie comes out the other end.
And a movie comes out as we did Tombstone. We did all the guns, the horses, the saddles. We built most of the costumes. I played Texas Jack in the movie.
Wow.
And I hired all of the Red Sash gang. All the guys that were part of the gang because they come in with their own horses, their own costumes. I've got 4 movies coming up between now and throughout January, that we're doing. 3 of them are westerns, and one of them is a horror movie. But
filming at the ranch.
Some of them are filming at the ranch. One of them is filming in Tucson, Arizona.
That's actually really fascinating.
So I tell people I don't make a lot of money. I make a little money a lot because I'm always working. And this is the fun part about it. But it's what I tell people. I do a lot of colleges and do some speeches at them. And what I tell people is, if you want to make a living in this business, you do what you love to do. If you follow your heart, I do the one-man show on Buffalo Bill, and he said, follow your own spirit guide and cut your own trail. And if you do that, if you follow your heart and do what you love to do, it's never work. Thomas Edison said, I never worked a day in my life. It was all fun. And that's the way I look at it. What do? I ride a horse and shoot a gun. Where's the work in that?
And
I
they
get
pay
paid
you for that.
And they pay me for it. And,
do you let people come by and come on the property?
People
and look
sneak
at
by once in a while. You know, people know me or they see the show or something, and they'll give me a call, and they'll say, "Oh, can we come by and have a tour?" So we have a little town and things, but I don't have it's not a tour thing because we are working all the time. So I have people, I have my wranglers working on it, my costume people. So we always have people doing things. But no, do we have a tour set up? No.
Not Disneyland.
No, it's not Disneyland. It's not Universal. It's not those things. We're working. We're a working ranch. We have 100 head of cows on it. I've got the horses on it. So we're always doing something. And people come out and they go,
absolutely amazing that's out there and I never knew of it.
Yeah, they come out and they go, oh, do you go to the range to shoot? I go, yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, home on the range.
Yeah, we are home on the shooting range. We do all of that stuff, and we teach. I'll teach the actors how to ride, how to shoot. So when we're doing a movie, we have this movie coming up called Western Religion, which is about a poker tournament in the Old West. So I'm playing the bartender who runs the poker tournament. But I had to take the actors out who are going to be in the tournament because most actors don't know how to do anything. So we had a poker tournament at my house, and so they're at the ranch house, and we all played for free. We all played for free until the director said, you know, and I kept on losing while we played for free. And then they said, you know, we ought to put like at least $20 up everybody so that we can play for some. So make it a little more exciting. It's funny I won that one, but that's the fun part about it.
I learned years ago never play poker with a guy in a cowboy hat.
Nah.
Thank you for the information. I appreciate that. I will.
Yeah, check our website
if you
out.
Want, you want us to put your contact information on our
Please
show?
do, yeah. Right. And caravanwest.com is our website.
All right.
And we do that. We advertise all over the place. And we do, like I said, we like to work. We like to play things because this is what we love to do. So we bring people out, we teach them how to ride, we teach them how to shoot. I teach them with live ammunition, with blank ammunition. You know, how many times do you watch the movie and a guy is shooting a gun and there's no recoil?
Not any movies I've worked on, but I see it all the time.
Blanks don't have recoil. Yeah. So I'll teach them how to shoot with live ammunition, see what that recoil is like, and then
they look
let them duplicate it when they're firing a blank.
We have people come in our range and they want to shoot an Uzi like Arnold Schwarzenegger with one hand.
Yeah.
Only works with blanks. We know that. Thanks very much for having us.
My pleasure, Bob.
Take care.
Hi, this is Tony with the Gun Store in Las Vegas. Today we're going to be doing a very, very fine handgun on our historical demonstration. This is the Smith & Wesson Model 52. And this gun was developed back in 1961, and it was used for bullseye shooting. The Army Marksmanship Unit first started out with these guns. And this is a finely made, for a long time, this was the highest priced gun in Smith's catalog. It is a 38 wad cutter. In other words, it shoots 38 ammunition that is used in a 38 special revolver. However, what they developed this gun, they couldn't have the bullet sticking out, so they do what they call a wad cutter ammunition. Wad cutter means that the bullet itself is inserted into the cartridge case. And the term wad cutter means it's made for target shooting, and when a bullet pierces the paper, it creates a perfectly round hole for scoring. This gun was basically built for what they call bullseye shooting. Bullseye shooting is one-hand, offhand type shooting, and normally they only had 5 rounds in a magazine because all of the courses of fire were 10 rounds, 2 strings of 5 rounds each. This is a finely made gun. It's a all steel construction. It has a tightening barrel bushing on, and there's absolutely no play in the gun. There's no play in the slide. There's no play in the hood area. And when I was up on the police department, we had police, what they call police combat shooting, PPC shooting, and that was 6 rounds and basically used a revolver. When the change from the revolver to the semi-automatic on most police agencies, the NRA changed the competition and allowed automatics to be fired in PPC competition. However, this gun was only a 5-shot weapon. So what we did to modify, we would cut the slot down in the follower on the magazine just a little bit more to get the 6th round in. And I'm telling you, this gun would shoot rings around any duty gun. It's extremely accurate. You put this gun on a rest at 50 yards and it will punch one hole on rounds. It's really, really nice. The triggers are extremely light on these. They're under a pound, and it's one of my favorite guns. It's wood and steel. In fact, we're going to demonstrate tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to cut a card in half. I shot this gun prior, and it is a very, very accurate gun, and we're going to cut a card. I'm actually going to cut a card in half with this gun, just to show you how accurate it is. Okay, we've got a card set up on the down range over there, and hopefully with my one shot we'll be able to do it. So we'll see what happens. Very, very nice. We got lucky on that one. This is one of the first models that they built. This is the Model 52. This was made between 1961 and 1963. They only made 3,500 of this particular model. In In '64, they went to the 52-1 model, and then they went to the 52-2 model. The gun is no longer manufactured because the machinery that Smith & Wesson used to build it kind of broke down in about 1992, I believe. So they never decided to repair the machinery, so the gun kind of went by the wayside. And however, it's a finely collectible gun, still very accurate, and we're selling this one right now. This one is for sale at the store, and they're quite expensive. But again, one of the most finely made target pistols around. Colt made one on a 1911 frame in the .38 caliber also to compete with this particular gun. However, the Smith & Wesson was far more accurate than the Colt. And, the Colts are quite valuable now because they didn't make very many of those either. But again, one of my favorites.
Hi folks, Mike Rogers from the Gun Store. Time for some more Moron of the Week, where we try to teach by negative example, maybe give you some ideas of things not to do, and some of them are just plain funny. Enjoy.
Sneemam.
There are better ways than that to do things, folks. Being a moron should be painful. You should bleed a little for it. Advanced techniques are for advanced thinkers. Come to the gun store, take our basic handgun class, learn how to do things right. Fundamentals are important. It's easy to learn. Just be taught right from the beginning.
What modifications can I make to my firearm and still be legal? Last week we talked a little bit about what kind of firearm you should use to defend yourself, whether it's a concealed carry firearm or one in your home. Every now and then somebody will call and say, what modifications can I make to my firearm and still be legal? Well, it's not a question of being legal. It's a question of being defensible if you're charged with a crime or sued. There are certain modifications that are easily defensible no matter what. Things like changing the color of the firearm, changing the grips on the firearm, are not probably going to factor in to whether you're charged. Things like adding better sights can actually improve your defensibility because it proves you're trying to make the firearm more effective so you can carefully and effectively shoot it should you be called upon to do so. With trigger jobs and other action modifications, be careful. It's not a problem if you change the weight of the pull on the trigger. Just make sure the gunsmith who does the work is reliable and that they do it in a professional manner. Don't make your trigger so light that it can become unsafe or leave you open to the allegation that you accidentally fired the firearm. Remember, everything you do to the firearm is going to come into question in a court of law if you're ever called upon to use your firearm in self-defense. Make only those modifications that are necessary.
And we are back once again here on Fired Up. This story is about the new police chief in Detroit. His name is James Craig. He's really bummed out over the anti-gun crowd advocating armed citizens can't protect themselves.
Personally, I think the guy had a lot of guts to say what all of us know is the truth, that armed citizens protect themselves a whole lot better than responding police officers can. I mean, there's always a delay in an emergency situation, and when you're talking about a life and death situation, having a weapon could very well save your life. And this police chief is stating the obvious, and yet it's politically incorrect. But he had the guts to do it. So I give him kudos, especially in Detroit.
Yeah, Chief Craig spent 28 years with LAPD in their high crimes area, with almost no carry permit. I mean, there's no permits, whatever. Yeah, and then he took over in Portland, Maine, and he credits a lot of the lower crime rate to the citizens being able to arm themselves. This is coming from him, which really they're not usually,
I mean,
that outspoken about it. Like, this is great.
Maybe he gained a little insight from his time up in Maine, because I can't imagine like Randy said, this is Detroit. This is this is not Josephine County, Oregon. This is Detroit. But I mean, study shows that more guns, less crime. I mean, it's John Lott. I mean, let's just go. It's been proven. More gun, and an honest citizen with a gun is very likely to prevent a serious crime. If he's.
And most of the street officers I talked to, and anybody who's a police officer's talked privately. Sometimes you won't speak out in your own department because it's not approved language. But as an attorney, I talk to cops all the time, and in private they'll say things like, well, we go see the worst that's happened. We see the bloody bodies, we see all this stuff, and if somebody just had a gun, they could have stopped it, or the guy with the gun, we got there and he had stopped it and he'd saved his family, and they're all for that. There's another guy in Michigan who was pretty blunt and took a chance. The Michigan Association Chiefs of Police Director Robert Stevenson agreed with the chief, James Craig, and he said, and quote, "A lot of police officers have no problem at all with law-abiding citizens having guns." That is totally different than what you usually get out of union spokespeople, especially the command level spokespeople.
But now, wait a minute. There's Robin Thomas, who waded in on this. Robin is the director, I want to get her title right, director of the Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence in San Francisco. And she disagrees. She says the idea that people feel safer when they have guns, but studies have shown that more guns don't deter crime. No research that shows guns makes anyone safer.
She made that up.
She is
She
in
made it
her
up.
own world
Wait.
creating a study.
Let's take her little self-created world. We're gonna take her to Detroit, like
Drop her off.
like a Saturday night. Just leave her in an alley and see what happens. See if then maybe she's like, oh, I might want a gun.
There was actually a survey done by PoliceOne.com, which is one of the largest news services for law enforcement. And they took a poll of about 15,000 law enforcement officers, asking about gun ownership and how that relates to their safety of the gun owners and their families. And 90% of the police officers who responded agreed that you should be armed and it's safer for you. Now these are the guys that every day are responding to to crimes and violence, and there's no doubt. I mean, anybody that's ever worn the badge knows that you got to protect yourself.
I think that Miss Thomas is, she's referring to a study that has been largely debunked, completely and totally debunked, and it's the study, we've all heard this statistic, a gun in the home is 25 times more likely to kill a loved one or a friend or family member than it is an intruder. And that study was completely and totally debunked, but one side of the debate loves to use that one and disregard the now 4 studies, one very recent, and John Lott's seminal work, of course, More Guns, Less Crime, that say more guns equate to less crime, people are safer if they have that, you're less likely to be harmed if you defend yourself with a firearm than other forms of defense. I refer to it, the entire anti-gun group has this mentality, I refer to it as the Joseph Goebbels method of public policy. If you say something often enough, loud enough with the right audience, people will tend to believe it because you seem like you know what you're talking about. And when she says things like, there's no research that show guns make anyone safer, well, then there's no reason for police officers to carry guns.
Yeah, but when the President of the United States and his Attorney General say basically the same thing, and to push their political agendas. All that does is reinforce in the minds of morons like this woman what they are saying to their public, and people believe if it's in print, it's got to be true.
Wait, the internet doesn't lie?
It's purely propaganda. And in fact, if you go and you read behind her words, she gave a whole long lecture about this. And what she basically said was the people who want guns and like guns, they're emotional. It's all emotional. Well, it seems to me that if it only saves one life, that's an emotional plea. Think of the poor families. That's an emotional plea, not it's a relatively low incident for the kinds of bad things that happen with guns, whereas the good uses of firearms are through the roof. And here's the thing that I had never thought about. Somebody pointed this out to me the other day. All of these studies, John Lott's study, the new study by Gaius, that's in the new Journal of Economics, that says basically the same thing. They don't include police officers. They're just private citizens. If we take police officers who have used firearms to defend themselves and others, then that increases the number. But we've completely and totally eliminated an entire group because we assume police officers use guns to defend themselves. That's a foregone conclusion. So we take them out of the studies when they shouldn't be out of the studies. Now, some of the studies may include them a little bit because every now and then an officer becomes a victim of a violent crime and they get into the crime statistics. But Randy, how many times in your careers as a police officer did you draw a firearm, hold somebody at gunpoint, and then put the gun away, talk to the person, maybe arrest them, maybe not, and never report the firearm came out of the holster?
I'm gonna say thousands.
Thousands, right?
Right, yeah.
Those thousands of times that firearm potentially saved your life didn't make it into any study. And she's saying that no research shows guns made you any safer as a police officer, or Tony, or Bob.
She's an idiot.
Don't sugarcoat it, Randy. Let us know.
Director of Law Enforcement to prevent gun violence in San Francisco. I don't think there is any gun violence in San Francisco, is there?
It's impossible. There's no guns allowed.
That's what I'm saying.
Oakland and San Francisco are incredibly safe. I understand.
There's nothing there. You can't. There's not gun shops there. I think they closed the last gun shop in San Francisco several years ago.
Some time ago.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me to hear these things, but to know that if it really came down to it, if these people had to hold a gun in their hands to save their families' lives, to prevent a crime, they'd 100% do it. How do they say that? If it meant saving her hypothetical children's lives or her significant other, if you said, listen, you can either die because this person's going to kill you, or we're going to give you a gun and you can fight to save your life.
She would never admit to you that that's the truth.
Never. But that's so crazy because, just as a human, because I probably don't want people I love to die. That's just a natural.
But you're absolutely right.
That's
Michael
so
Bloomberg,
insane.
one of the largest anti-gun guys out there right now, founded Mayors Against Illegal Guns. He reportedly offered huge amounts of money to his former police protective detail to continue protecting him when he's not the mayor, because he's got a billionaire. He can afford to pay him whatever he wants. You don't need guns, but he needs 2 guys carrying firearms. So, that says it all right there. It's a class warfare thing. We don't think you need them because you can't handle them. We're a different subject.
The hypocrisy of politicians.
I don't know. I don't know what happens to these people when they get to this elevated point where they're looking at the peasants and going, well, they're safe. Because they feel they're safe, because they're in their neighborhood with their armed guards and their gates and so forth, and the regular people shouldn't have guns, because who cares if they're victims of a crime? This is just, it is. It's the class warfare.
They haven't watched somebody bleed that could have saved their family or their own life, and that's really what it comes down to.
Don't let them get to you. You need to have a gun and know how to shoot it in order to protect your family. We can't get any clearer than that on this show. Thanks for tuning in one more time. We'll be back next week at the same time slot. Hope you'll tune us in again. Thanks for watching.